This is Capital Games. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. No news really today that we've had from the weekend as well. This is usually another dead point when it's no news comes out when it's a holiday. But we thought since some big games are coming out in the next couple of weeks, that we would discuss them a little bit before they come out, but we're not talking about the game itself, as we are a business podcast that focuses in on the gaming industry. We thought we might talk about the business of it, which in detail would be the sales projections that we think that these games are going to have. So with that, Zero, you made the suggestion that we should talk about Fire Emblem Engage, the new Fire Emblem that's coming out in about, is it a week or is it this coming Sunday?
No, it's this coming Friday, the 20th.
Friday, okay. Well,
yeah, Nintendo games are always a Friday release.
I thought they were always
when
Sunday.
They're coming. No. Ever since, I want to say, the 3DS and Wii U days, Nintendo releases have generally been on Fridays.
I don't know why I thought it was Sundays, but okay. So, the new Fire Emblem is coming out Friday. Well, let's get into the history of Fire Emblem. Before Fire Emblem Awakening, sales were not very hot on Fire Emblem. In fact, if I recall correctly, the Fire Emblems before Awakening ended up not making sales projections or doing a good job from each release. From the Fire Emblem from GBA to, I believe, the last one that did was the Wii version, which was Radiant Dawn. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Radiant Dawn was the last major release before Awakening happened on 3DS.
And from what it sounded like before Awakening, well, this was actually confirmed, right? That the sales weren't doing so hot in Japan either. Essentially, Fire Emblem was going to go away after Awakening, and Nintendo was not expecting Awakening to sell a lot of copies. Well, as it turns out, and how legend has shown at this point, is that Awakening did fantastically. It was one of the best reviewed games of that year, and it sold a lot of copies, a lot that Nintendo was not prepared for. I believe one of the things that with Awakening that had the problem was it was hard to get copies at the time. And people and that's what got a lot of people, including me, to buy digitally from the eShop at that point. And that's what essentially led people to, I believe, buy Fire Emblem Awakening in droves. Because one, it was the only good game at the time for the 3DS out, and people were raving about it. But also, it was a really good game. Oh my god, it's still my favorite Fire Emblem. But that doesn't mean also that the sales have been bad for Fire Emblem since. Even their remakes and their lesser celebrated titles, they've actually sold very well. So Fire Emblem Awakening jumped the franchise into probably one of what would be Nintendo's top 5 franchises at this point.
I believe so. And the funny thing was, Awakening, in some ways, while being mostly a traditional style Fire Emblem game, it did something huge that was a major departure from a lot of the other Fire Emblem games. And some speculate that this was probably sort of the renaissance that the series had needed and everything. And really, it was the whole concept of romancing characters. Apparently, that hadn't been done in a significant way in past games, and this one was the one that just introduced this mechanic to just a large contingency of people that just, you had people kind of going off into their own fandoms going, this character best waifu because this is my reason, or you'd have other people going, this character best husbando because as he's so handsome. Just, you had so many people just in love with the fact that they could take their player character and just romance whoever may have been interested in them and everything. So just kind of a fun sort of interaction that apparently, I guess, intelligence systems had no idea people were wanting, and this sort of opened the floodgates for that.
Right. And even though it led to a bunch of degeneracy in Rule 34, the BS that, people are into, these sick freaks. But the other thing that Fire Emblem did is that they relaxed the difficulty of the game. I remember when this came out, we started that podcast that we used to do, and everyone loved it. But when we talked about how Fire Emblem was usually a very difficult game because when your characters die, they die permanently. They're like, how could you play like that? I'm like, I loved playing that game like that. And I still do to this day when I have the option. Like, if the option's there that, if my guy dies, they die, period. I still play that because I've been used to that with Fire Emblem this entire time. But that's the first Fire Emblem that took that gave you the option not to have that, which I think really helped to get a larger audience involved in the game. Let's stop talking about the game. We both love the game. Okay, let's talk about Fire Emblem Engage. So that's coming out this Friday. I guess the only question that we have to ask about is this. Do we think it will beat the sales of Fire Emblem Three Houses? Now, before you answer that question, Zero, I want to point out that in the first 3 months, for Three Houses being released, it sold over 2.29 million copies worldwide. And Fire Emblem Three Houses was a big success. It had a lot of good critic reviews. People liked the school setting in the game for the most part. There were some who were about it, but overall it was a very positive game. We don't know how the game is right now for Fire Emblem Engage, but do you think it will match, exceed, or go below what Fire Emblem Three Houses did for the first 3 months at 2.29 million? What do you think?
This one is a bit complex, and the reason why I'm kind of have mixed feelings whether or not Fire Emblem Engage can either meet or beat the sales of Three Houses is because of the initial impressions so far. For some background context, a couple weeks ago, Nintendo allowed content creators to share a little bit of what Fire Emblem Engage looks like and how it plays and their opinions and discussions about it. The one thing everyone seems to be united about is just, so far we love this because this is like a humongous love letter to the Fire Emblem series in general, because you've got this interesting premise that there are rings out in the world that characters can wear, and by wearing these they can summon the heroes of the past into the current era in Fire Emblem and everything. So just you've got the ability to bind and summon characters. So people who might be huge fans of the GBA game, which was the first English Fire Emblem that ever came out, if you are a big fan of Lyn, then you'll have the opportunity to summon Lyn as being your engaged spirit that's bound to your ring. If you're kind of a classic Fire Emblem person, maybe you just roll with Marth the entire playthrough. It's kind of a huge thing for anyone who is really, really entrenched in the Fire Emblem lore. That seems to be the one thing everyone loves. Second thing everyone loves is just the combat. The combat and the combat animations, everyone's just like, oh my god, just they've made it look so nice, so pretty. It's just fantastic to see. So those seem like, generally good things. The one piece that seems to get a lot of conflicting opinions is that Engage is actually going to be less about the social interactions. So if you didn't like the whole social interaction piece in Fire Emblem Three Houses, or you felt that it slowed down the game, then this game will not have those intense sort of social interactions. For the people who didn't quite like Three Houses too much, they may feel that the discontinuation of all the social link stuff is probably going to make the game feel more streamlined to you. Though, on the other hand, there are some people who have expressed disappointment with it, going, oh man, I loved being able to interact with the characters in my school of choice in Three Houses. Why can't we have more social interaction? They may not like this and they may just look elsewhere. But to those who are sort of in the middle and concerned on the social interaction piece, from what I can see from some of the video previews and some of the people who have talked about the game, there is still the bond mechanic. So you can have you can have two characters sort of party up with each other, and as they battle alongside each other, their bonds will grow, and I assume romance will probably be an option between two characters.
I don't think you answered the question. Do you think the sales will go higher, lower, or about the same for the game?
As far as the answer to that question, I'm honestly a bit conflicted. I want to say that there might be a chance that it might stabilize, or there could be a chance that it could slightly edge out Three Houses, but that's mostly on the condition that if there was a bigger contingency of people who ended up not liking Three Houses because of just how intensive the social interaction piece was, then you might have a big upswelling of people who are just like, hey, a Fire Emblem that goes back to the basic essentials and is focused on the strategy and the combat, I'm all there for it.
Right.
So that's the only contingency I can think of where it may either have stable sales or maybe better sales than Three Houses. Now, if the contingency of people who were just simply obsessed with the whole social link mechanic that Three Houses had, if that is where the mindshare is on things Fire Emblem, then maybe in a very rare case, I would say you might have sales less than Three Houses.
I think it will exceed what Three Houses did. And I'm going to explain why that is. Right now, Fire Emblem is a brand that is now synonymous with quality when it comes to strategy games. So if you're looking for a strategy game, and there have been some good ones on the Switch, such as Triangle Strategy and the like, you are going to pick up Fire Emblem Engage. Unless it is turned out to be a complete turd, which doesn't sound like that's happening, you're picking it up at this point. On top of that, there is something that not a lot of people discuss when it comes to Fire Emblem that they don't put into consideration as to what's increasing the sales of the newer versions that are coming out. And I wonder if you can guess what it is, Zero. What do you think I'm talking about?
I'm gonna have to let you just spoil the answer on this one.
Fire Emblem Heroes. Fire Emblem Heroes makes the most money out of any game right now than anything Nintendo has on mobile or other. I think Fire Emblem makes more money than most of the games that it has on most of its like with the exception maybe Zelda. Fire Emblem Heroes makes a ton of money. As of 2022, Fire Emblem Heroes has made over $1 billion in revenue when it comes to sales and the money it makes. It is continuing to be popular, it continues to get updates, and it continues to bring money in for Nintendo. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because they are going to be advertising this game on that app. And if you want the mainline experience, if you want what Fire Emblem is all about and a big Fire Emblem, they're going to plaster that game, the advertisement for that game, onto that app. And I think that's going to bring even more sales than it has back in the past. So based on that alone, I think it will reach about 2.75 million. I don't think it's reaching 3, but I think it'll be 2.5 to 2.75 million in the first 3 months that it comes out to. That is unless it turns out to be a dog of a game. But other than that, I think it's just going to go up at this point. So I can understand where you're coming from here when you're mentioning that maybe a certain system is not there, but what gets people engaged in that system is if the battle mechanics are good. I love the Persona games, don't get me wrong, but if the Persona games was just those social links and that's it, I don't think people would be just as enamored with it if it wasn't for the tight combat and really good strategic systems that are in that game as well. Same thing with Fire Emblem Awakening. What brings people into that is the gameplay and not the social links. The social links are interesting, but as long as the game is good, they'll try it no matter what if the social link system is in there. There is a small contingency of people who will say, oh, no social links, I'm out. They might say that, But I think the vast majority of them are going to be like, well, no, if the gameplay's tight, I don't care. Yeah, it sucks, but okay, that's fine, whatever. And then when you have all these different people who are going from Heroes into the Switch Fire Emblem Engage, and they're using characters that they have heard of, for example, Marth, Lyn, whatever, and they're going to be in that game, I think this is gonna mean bigger sales than I think what's leading on right now. So I think at this point, again, unless the game turns out to be a dud, I think it hits 2.5 to 2.75 million first 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, the point that you made about Fire Emblem Heroes sort of being a gateway drug is definitely a great thought too, because yeah, just I could easily see Nintendo injecting some sort of like little banner ad or something saying, hey, by the way, did you know Fire Emblem Engage is out on Switch right now? And for anyone who might have only just had a majority of their Fire Emblem exposure being Fire Emblem Heroes, maybe they have a Switch laying around, maybe they end up going, hey, I want a more full-fat experience. It's kind of a great gateway drug to see that ad and go, maybe I'll pick this game up. So that's a great point that I'd completely just forgot too. So you make a great point there.
I forget about Fire Emblem Heroes 2 most times. I played it when it first came out, and I've kind of forgotten it existed for a long time. But apparently the sales have been really good on it and continue to be pretty solid. So, because wasn't it about a year ago Dragalia Lost got shut down from Nintendo?
No, it shut down this past November.
Oh, okay. So, and the sales on that, I think, reached about 220 million, I believe, for that game. But Fire Emblem Heroes has made right now over $1 billion, and it's still going. So, I would have to think that that game has to be bringing more people in. Now, do I think it's a large amount? No. I just think it's enough to where the fans who are used to that classic experience and from Awakening will buy the game, and then it'll bring in just enough, more than enough to break that sales projection of 2.26 or 2.29. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's going to lead to 3 or 4 or 5 million. I just think it will go a little bit above what Three Houses did in its first 3 months. That's it. I don't think it's going to go any crazier than that. If it does, I'll be shocked. But I think it will at least top that to a small extent.
I think really my final thoughts are I'll be very curious to see how the initial sales go for Engage. Mostly because just I love Fire Emblem games. I will be fully upfront and honest with our audience that while I did buy Three Houses when it launched, I just felt it so hard to get into, mostly because of all the social link stuff, just having to constantly talk to the students, talk to teammates and stuff like that. Before and between missions and things like that, I felt it disrupted the flow of what made Fire Emblem so much fun for me. Really curious on Engage, because I think Engage is a little bit more up my alley, and I'll definitely be paying real close attention to it, because I feel like I would be one of the people who would likely just be a huge fan of Engage, because it seems to be more back to basics, but at the same time also being a humongous tribute to the Fire Emblem series as a whole.
I got 3/4 into it and I bounced. Nothing to do with the quality of the game, but I think I've gotten to a point where if I start to tail off on an RPG or anything like that, I kind of just move on. I don't like brute forcing my way through a game just to beat it. So that's really the only reason why I haven't completed. But I definitely really liked Three Houses. It's no Awakening, but I definitely enjoyed it. So why don't we get into total sales? Right now, as of, I believe these statistics are after December 2021. I doubt it's gotten any higher than this, but total sales for Three Houses was 3.82 million. And it started a spin-off called Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes that came out last year around June. I don't have the sales on that yet, but let's stick with the total sales on that. What are the odds that Engage, if it is good, reaches or beats Fire Emblem Three Houses?
If it does beat it, I would say it's probably going to be a very, very small margin. But
Okay.
that's under my presumption that there may have been a whole bunch of people who ended up checking out of Three Houses because they're like, oh, social links, nope, I don't want anything slowing down the rhythm of me playing Fire Emblem. I just want to concentrate on just the bare basics for story and just the exciting battles and just perfecting strategies on the battlefield and stuff like that.
Even though I think it's going to beat its 3-month projection, I do not think it will beat the total sales. I think it will probably reach 3.5, 3.6 around that time, and then that will be it at that point. Because let's look at what are some other Switch games that are coming out in 2023 this year, in the beginning at least. I mean, we have Octopath Traveler coming out. We have, of course, the Kirby remasters. Octopath is coming, was it February, March?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Maybe not in the strategy aspects. Like, maybe not in strategy, but an RPG. There are quite a few coming out. And even though they are two different games, usually RPG fans and strategy fans are kind of one and the same. So that might hurt its sales a little bit. But I think at this point, yeah, Octopath is coming February. So next month. Okay.
Yeah, and a day before Fire Emblem Engage comes out, you've got Persona 3 and 4 Portable. Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden coming.
Yeah.
So that may be great for anyone who wants more of the social link interaction. Then yeah, I could see them just checking out and going, I've always wanted to play Persona 3 Portable or Persona 4 Golden, so no social links in Engage. Okay, well, I know what I'm buying. Because I think the 2-pack download of both Persona 3 and 4 is going to total about $40 on the eShop, I think.
In my opinion, I think it will beat Three Houses sales in the first 3 months, but it won't reach its total. I think that is essentially what's going to happen. I think that it will get close, but I don't think it will beat the total amount of that at least. What do you think?
Okay. I would be inclined to agree with you on the 3-month prediction, but the overall sales, I kind of deviate and say that it might meet the total number, but depending on just the reception of the game,
right?
If it is indeed more focused and it brings back those who may have checked out of Fire Emblem Three Houses, then potentially you could see just total overall sales maybe beating out Three Houses, but that's kind of my thought on the matter.
We have differences of opinion on what we think it will do. Who do you think is right? Or if you want to tell us after, who do you think was wrong? Let us know on the comments section or let us know on social media, and we'll be sure to be conciliatory or gloat and say who is right or wrong. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I believe Fire Emblem Engage also has a season pass as well too.
Yes.
So, and the season pass content, I know usually the first pack of the content is usually XP and gold maps. So
yeah,
anyone who's wanting to turbocharge their parties are probably gonna end up grinding those maps like crazy. But I think really just the bigger question is going to be what's going to be in the rest of the season pass, because I know in the past they've done like the summer vacation sort of anime story, that's usually a trope, and maybe one serious story expansion. I don't believe that they've revealed anything substantial, but I'll definitely be curious to see what the overall plan for the season pass is as well, because if the season pass content is good, that could potentially be yet another gateway drug for Fire Emblem Mega fans to go, hell yeah, I gotta buy this game like today.
All right, well, on that note, this is the end of this discussion on the Capital Games. Tune in next time where we talk about other things that have happened in the gaming industry. I'm The Wiz.
I'm Zero.
And we will talk to you next time. Bye.